Welcome to Jim Cantelon Today. This is Bible teaching for the 21st century. As you know, friends, WOW, Working for Orphans and Widows, is our missions ministry that is 20 years old now. And JCT is a part of WOW, and we are the, if you will, the communicator, the official spokesman of the vision for working with orphans and widows overseas. We have entered into a partnership with Discovery Television. A lot of you watch Discovery Television with Rod Hembree, and he is going to join me. We're also going to hear a little bit from our latest partners in Chennai, India. It's going to be a very interesting show. As I said off the top, we're going to be highlighting a new missions ministry in India. And Rod Hembree was talking to me about it, but before we get to Rod, take a look at this. I'm sitting with the pastors of Calvary Community Ministries in Chennai, India. Chennai is a long way from North America. For many people, India is a very mysterious country, but it's a beautiful country with very fine people, one of the largest populations in the world. And right here in the heart of Chennai, we've got Pastor Vincent and Pastor Prem Samuel, father and son, who are pastoring a church that you, Vincent, established almost 40 years ago.
Yes.
Why? Why did you establish this church?
So God asked me to go to this place to reach the unreached people. So when I came here, it was very hard to work in this area. By the grace of God, God did a lot of miracles and wonders. Through that, we were able to start with 6 people and started a small group, then became a church. Then we came here and pioneered this church.
Now you started with 6 people,
Yes.
and now you have well over 1,000. I think a big reason for your growth, tell me if I'm wrong, was that you began to reach out to the community. You began to reach out to the needy. You developed social justice ministries. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
But you have told me off camera that you identified with the poor and the needy because you yourself grew up poor and needy. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I was born in very poor background. I know what is hunger, what is thirst. So when I entered into the ministry, I was looking for the opportunity to help, to do the righteousness and justice for the community, underprivileged community. In that time, I think 1981, a huge flood affected in our area. To help one family, I entered into that community and we did a relief operation, giving them grocery, mats, pillow and carpets, blankets, like that. And later on, we entered into the community and we started community development project. That's called Taramani Development Project. That area is called Taramani. So we were doing a lot of...
So your entry level in terms of social justice was responding to a flood. Was it a tsunami?
Yes, this is flood, only flood.
Right, okay, and this kind of established your signature in this part of Chennai as a church that really cares about the needs of the community.
Yes.
Now, your son Prem is also very involved in this ministry. And I just want to ask you, Prem, you grew up with this. You've continued with social justice ministries. You're doing more than disaster relief. You're doing more than just responding to urgent needs. You're doing things on a regular basis. Tell us about some of those things.
Yeah, our work, as Dad said, it started with the relief work. And because of the needs and the necessity that is in and around the city and the people in need, we have to go to an ongoing process, and we are still continuing doing. So various works that we have been engaged and doing are, it started with the helping in one family, and it went to hundreds and hundreds of families. So we have been engaged in tailoring schools, night tuition centers for our kids who are in the labor class in the neighborhood itself. And we do also, we did lots of vocational training, like, whatever, how the people can go on for the job. When they were unemployed, we gave them a lot of vocational training, where AC mechanic, beautician courses, and so on. So through that, we were able to give them job opportunities, and people are really trained in their skills. Not just giving the fish, but we also show them how to fish.
Yeah, how to fish. Now, one of the things that my wife and I saw for ourselves over the last few days is you are doing some terrific work with orphans and also with widows. And that really is close to our heart. In your orphan care, Vincent, you're working in what you tell me is the largest slum in Southeast Asia. Have I got that correct?
Yes.
When I heard about that, I was totally shocked. I didn't realize the largest slum in Southeast Asia. Why is it the largest slum in Southeast Asia? Why does Chennai have this huge slum?
Well, these people were sleeping on the street and a small hut, disturbing the government. So the government identify all these people and put them in one locality, in one community. So government come forward to build the houses for these kind of people so that they can be in one area. They were staying in a different area of the city, Chennai city. More than 14,000 families are living in that location.
14,000 families. And the average family would be how many?
6 to 10.
6 to 10.
Father and mother, maybe children and old people, things like that. Some of them will be sleeping inside the room. Most of them will be sleeping on the roadside, outside, to get the nice air.
So Rod Hembree really needs no introduction to most of you. He's been on television longer than I've been alive. At least that's how it feels.
Wow, I'm old.
No, but you've been on for well over 20 years on television,
yes.
in both Canada and the U.S. Now called Bible Discovery, but a lot of people still know you as the
Quick Study.
Quick Study, right. But as Bible Discovery, you now have your own internet network. Your program is going all over the world. You're very high profile in television in both Canada and the U.S. And internet, people are watching you wherever there's internet.
That's right. We're in whatever market has internet, we're in that market.
You're there and doing a great job with your journey through the scriptures every year. Recently, Rod, you and I think under hopefully the leadership of the Holy Spirit, decided that we would collaborate, that we would work together, not only in terms of production with television, but also in missions. And we have just seen an interview with Vincent and Prem Samuel, both pastors, in Chennai, India. We are going to be working together. In fact, we already are working together now. Bible Discovery and WOW, Working for Orphans and Widows, which is the organization we founded 20 years ago. And we are working specifically with orphans and widows. Now, you are no stranger to India. In fact, India's kind of been in your blood for since you were a teenager, right?
It has. I first went to India when I was about 17. And I was with Dr. Holderness and his wife, Jan. and my mom and my dad, and we went over to see Mark Buntain. And Mark did a good thing. What he said is, he said to Doc Holderness, who was planning all of the trips, he said, don't come here first. Start in Hong Kong in 1979. He said, fly to Hong Kong, then fly to the Philippines, and then when you come to India, go to New Delhi, and then go to Agra, and so on. Because in those times, we'd end up in Calcutta. In those times, there was a degradation. We started in Hong Kong, but then we changed to the Philippine Islands, then we went to New Delhi, and then it just kept going down
kind of a
and
downward
down.
spiral.
And we hit Calcutta, and it was worse than I had ever
Well,
seen.
I remember it being named or called the hellhole of the world. Mark Buntain, for those who don't know him, was referred to by some as Saint Mark of Calcutta. He was like the Protestant equivalent of Mother Teresa. He was an outstanding Canadian who established a work in Calcutta that continues to this day with the Calcutta Mission of Mercy.
He was amazing. Mark Buntain was just every time you talked to him, you felt like you were interrupting a conversation between him and God, you know. It's like, sorry, Mark, I just need to talk to you for a minute. Because Mark was that way. Everywhere he went, he commanded the attention that he had because he was looking to God. He was always saying, oh, Jesus. Jesus, help us. Oh, Jesus, help us. That was every other word. Like we say ah or hum or whatever. He would say, oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Was an outstanding man. And, Huldah is still alive today. And
That's his wife.
Yeah. But Mark started something. And a lot of people talk about Mother Teresa and what a great woman she is or was. But Mark Buntain was an active force in Calcutta, and he worked with her, but he pioneered a hospital, pioneered a church, pioneered orphanages. He was amazing.
Yeah, he really was.
Set the record totally crazy, and people knew who he was.
But this had a big impact on you, and here we are many, many years later, and you're now with us getting involved back in India. It's almost like what goes around comes around.
India's in my blood because I was there when I was young. And the Bible tells Joshua, he says, everywhere you set your foot, that's where you're going to go. You're going to own that property. And I've always set my foot in India when I was 17, and I realized we have to continue to help there because we have before. And Chennai is amazing. This is an amazing place. And these two pastors, the father and the son, these are amazing people.
Yeah, and they have a tremendous track record, Rod. And as you know, with WOW, we work exclusively through local church engagement. We do not work outside of the church. And the reason, and I know you're all for this, and this is one of the reasons we're partnering together, because you, like me, are a churchman. You're a church planner like I am, and you're a pastor like I am, and you're a pastor's kid like I am. I mean, the church is a family business. But if you're working through a local church, you've got sustainability. You have consistent follow through. You have spiritual leadership. You have pastors overseeing everything. And they understand accountability. They understand reporting. And we can, as the Lord provides through his faithful donors, give a very accurate accounting of every dollar that is given.
It's important because the church pastors, which this is God's institution, okay? This is not man's institution. But the church is God's institution. He is the center of the church. And when he wanted to talk to people, he would talk to the church. His people would be the church. In fact, in Revelation, we see that in the first 3 chapters, chapters 2 and 3, he talks to the 7 churches because he's saying there's some things I need to set straight and some things that I'm proud of. So this is really important. And I think that us being involved together on this is so significant right now because India is an amazing country, beautiful country.
Absolutely. And it's very much in the news. 1.3 billion people. It's a huge country with huge progress and sometimes huge poverty. It's almost a world of polar opposites, and yet right there in the midst of it is the ministry of the gospel. I've got about 30 seconds, Rod. It's interesting that in Chennai, you're talking about a footprint that was established by none other than Doubting Thomas. Thomas, the one who said, until I can put my hand in the hole in his side and in his fingers or his hands, I will not believe. And of course, Jesus accommodated him. And after the resurrection, the disciples dispersed, and Thomas dispersed to southern India. And friends, there are 5,000 churches in Chennai today. 5,000 churches. I visited St. Thomas's gravesite, beautiful cathedral that's built over it, and the fragrance of his ministry continues this day. And I hope with Discovery TV, Rod Hembree, and with WOW, we can at least contribute to the ongoing fragrance of the gospel in that marvelous part of the world.
Jim Cantelon Today is a program dedicated to the teaching of the good news of Jesus Christ. This all through the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. JCT also brings to you encouraging testimonies and stories from Christian leaders all over the globe. If this program has added value to your life, would you please consider becoming a partner? To do so, simply contact us by phone, mail, or online.
So last time, friends, and we are continuing, of course, in the book of Matthew, and I've done so now for a long time, but I don't care how long it takes. I'm taking it slow, verse by verse, thought by thought, because I want you to be exposed to this marvelous gospel of Matthew. We'll do the same with Mark, we'll do it with Luke and Acts, and we'll also do it with John, God willing. Anyhow, last time, Jesus had predicted Peter's denial, and Peter was pretty ebullient about his commitment to never, ever betraying or walking away from Jesus. And Jesus warned him, before the rooster crows, you will have denied me 3 times this night. And of course, Peter was scandalized by that thought. Even if I have to die with you, I'll not deny you, he said in verse 35 of Matthew 26. So let's pick it up here. Verse 36, Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane and said to the disciples, sit here while I go and pray over there. He took with him Peter, the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. He went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, oh, my Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, what? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Again, a second time he went away and prayed, saying, oh, my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them, went away again, and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand. The Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. So, see, my betrayer is at hand. And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude, with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Okay, this is one of the most gripping and dramatic pictures we have of Jesus in his entire history. The cross is just on the horizon. He's just had his Last Supper with the disciples. He's already told Peter, you're going to deny me. Peter says, no way, Lord. He says, come on, fellas, let's go down to the garden. Now, Gethsemane is a beautiful garden, even to this day. And as you know, I pastored in Jerusalem for 7 years, raised my family there, and I know Israel and Jerusalem especially very, very well. I have walked many times from the area of the upper room where the Last Supper was, down through the wall of the old city, usually taking the Zion Gate, and then walking along the wall and down Mount Zion into the Kidron Valley, and then up the side of the Mount of Olives to the Garden of Gethsemane, which is about 1/3 of the way up from the Kidron Valley on the side opposite to the old city of Jerusalem. This was Jesus' happy place. He loved it there. We can assume that he spent a lot of time there, not just being alone, but being at peace, and also in many cases, just spending time alone with his Father in prayer. Gethsemane means oil press, or oil field, or oil vat, but it was a place where olives were harvested and they were also pressed. And an olive press in those days, in fact, you can see olive presses all over Israel to this day, essentially was a big stone that was carved into a kind of a circular trough, and then another stone that would fit inside the trough with a hole through it, through which a post could be put, and then it could be attached to a donkey or an ox, and it would walk around and around and around, and this post would take this smaller stone around the trough and the big stone, and the olives would be in the trough, and then there were a couple of holes in the trough where the olive oil could pour out into the bottom of the stone, which had been carved into a kind of a receptacle. It was a very efficient method and very effective because these stones are really heavy and quite rough. They preferred basalt stone, which is very readily available in the northern Galilee, but also limestone was sometimes used as well. The area of Gethsemane, still to this day, is a kind of a olive grove or an olive tree grove. And there are some trees there that probably were just saplings in Jesus' time. There's one there that's got to be almost 3,000 years old. And olive trees are really beautiful. They seem to kind of rot from the inside, but the outside, the bark stays there, and it's very gnarly bark. And it's all that's necessary to keep the olive tree alive. And so even though the inner part of the tree just kind of, rots away, the circumference of the tree, which is this very rough-hewn, gnarly bark, provides all of this sustenance from the roots up to the fruit, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So it would have taken them, half an hour to walk from the upper part of Mount Zion, down Mount Zion, through the Kidron Valley, and up to the Garden of Gethsemane on the, it would be the western slope of the Mount of Olives. He gets to a point in the garden, I don't know if it was an entry gate or what, but where he leaves 8 of the disciples there. Now, there are only 11 disciples at this point. Judas has already left. So he leaves 8 of them there, and they immediately hunker down under a tree and go to sleep because it's the middle of the night. These guys are sleepy. And they've just had a big meal. All the more reason to want to have a nap or even a night's sleep. And then 3 of them, Peter, James, and John, he takes with him a little further into the garden for some quiet time. Now, Peter, James, and John were sort of like the inner circle, probably resented by the other disciples because of their special status. I mean, these were the guys that Jesus took up Mount Hermon for the transfiguration experience. They were the ones who saw him, as Luke puts it, in Jesus' glory. The other disciples kind of thought that maybe there's a pecking order here. Certainly Peter, James, and John thought so. Peter figured he was Jesus' best friend, and James and John figured they should sit in the right hand and left hand of Jesus when he established his throne in Jerusalem. So, human nature being what it is what it is, right? Anyway, Jesus, as Matthew tells us in the Greek, is full of heaviness. Actually, in the Greek language, and I'm no Greek scholar, but I know enough, and I have enough study aids with me, I can wade through the Greek. There's actually an implication in the Greek word of far from home. Far from home. Full of heaviness, far from home. And he, in many ways, was experiencing what Isaiah was pointing out in chapter 63, verse 3, when he refers to the future Messiah as having to tread the winepress alone. Now, there's a mix of metaphors there. This is not a wine press, it's an olive press, but the point being that it was going to be a very pressing experience where the very lifeblood, if you will, and the very virtue of Jesus was going to be pressed out through this horrible experience that awaited him in just a few hours' time. So it's little wonder Jesus is, knowing the full weight of this, praise Lord, if it's possible, not as I will, but thou wilt. But man, I would just as soon, if I had my way, that I didn't have to go through this. But he was committed to his Father's will. He comes back and finds the disciples asleep. Why wouldn't they be asleep? You'd be asleep, so would I. and he wakes him up and says, pray that you not be led into temptation. He's not talking here about sexual temptation, not talking about temptation to spend money or to overindulge in food or drink or whatever. He's talking about the temptation to deny him and to deny the Father under duress of persecution. In fact, when he introduces the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation, that's what he's talking about there too. He knew that the disciples were going to be facing some huge opposition in the course of their lives. He knew that all of them, maybe but one or two, would die horrendous deaths because of their preaching of the gospel. And, pray that you not be led into temptation, the temptation to desert, the temptation to flee, the temptation to deny me. And of course, that's exactly what happened. Peter denied him. The rest of them deserted him. Judas betrayed him. And if you look at it in the natural, boy, what a bunch of failures these disciples were. But Jesus saw something down the line that they couldn't see. And he had full faith that one day they'd come around.
JCT TV is the official voice of WOW, working for orphans and widows. Jim Cantelon is the founder of WOW and has been ministering to orphans and widows in distress for 18 years. WOW's focus is home-based care for the dying. The horizon is vast, with thousands of the least of these in Africa and India. WOW depends on your generous support. To connect with us, you can call us at 1-800-969-9551, or you can visit us online at wowmission.com.
Remember, friends, JCT, Jim Cantelon today, is here to present to you a much broader picture than you might see initially. And that is, not only are we studying the Gospels together, but we're also promoting a tremendous ministry to orphans and widows in various parts of the world. Wow, working for orphans and widows. You see the promos on the show, founded by my wife and I 20 years ago, doing a tremendous work on the ground with church-based people in Africa and India, who are really the champions. And together with them on the ground and us here on the air, we're trying to raise your awareness of that, even as we raise your awareness of the Gospels. So remember your best gift, friend, for WOW and JCT when you write us or when you email us, whatever, and ask for Cantelon's Casual Commentary. It's in 4 volumes now for the book of Matthew. It's still available. And I'm working on Mark, and that will be coming your way within a few programs. Thanks for watching.